Shut this circus down before I call the cops and have every single one of you dragged out of here." The words cracked across the park pavilion like a whip. It was supposed to be a perfect Saturday afternoon at Ridgeview Park. 8-year-old Amara Parker was celebrating her birthday under a balloon arch with cupcakes, music, and a rented pavilion her mother had reserved months ago. Kids chased bubbles across the lawn, parents set up folding chairs, and the scent of barbecue drifted in the warm air. But now, the laughter had stopped. Victoria Kane, the neighbor from across the street, stood in wedge heels at the edge of the picnic tables, face red with fury. She grabbed at the string of balloons tied to the railing and yanked hard, popping two with a sharp bang. "You people don't belong here," she shouted, her manicured fingers stabbing toward the cake table. "This is a public park, not some noisy block party. The rest of us pay taxes to keep it clean, not to watch it get overrun." Gasps rippled through the crowd of 30 guests. Amara's little hands clutched her Minnie Mouse tiara, eyes wide with confusion. 16-year-old Maya Ward, Amara's cousin, quietly lifted her phone. With a single tap, she went live on Instagram. "Y'all need to see this lady losing it at an 8-year-old's birthday," she whispered. 23 viewers appeared, then 45. "Ma'am," Amara's mother Danielle Parker began, her tone calm but firm. "We reserved this pavilion through the Parks Department. We have the permit posted right there." She pointed toward a laminated sheet taped beside the grill. "Victoria," sneered. "That piece of paper could be fake. I know people like you. Always finding loopholes, always taking advantage. Not in my neighborhood." The words hung heavy. Parents glanced at each other, stunned into silence. Victoria pulled out her iPhone, nails clattering on the screen as she dialed 911. She turned her back to the crowd but raised her voice for dramatic effect. "Yes, police. I'm at Ridgeview Park. There's a large, rowdy group here. Loud music, possible drinking, blocking public pathways. Looks suspicious. I don't feel safe." Danielle's jaw clenched. "There are children here. Families. You're lying to the police." Victoria ignored her, pacing. "Yes, send someone fast. It looks like a gang party." Maya's livestream counter surged past 200 as comments poured in. "She really called kids a gang? Someone screenshot this." "Not the balloons, lady." Across the lawn, elderly Mrs. Novak shook her head and filmed from her porch across the street. Other neighbors peeked from windows, their Ring cameras catching every angle. Victoria ended her call and spun back to the party, smugness painted across her face. 12 minutes, she announced loudly. "That's how long you have until this whole illegal gathering is shut down." Children clung to their parents. The music faltered to silence. Danielle placed a steady hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Sweetheart, it's okay," she whispered, though her voice carried the steel of a woman used to standing her ground. Victoria folded her arms, smirking. "This is Ridgeview. We have standards." From the pavilion, Major Andre Lewis, Danielle's brother-in-law in full-dress blues, stepped forward, his posture military sharp. His presence commanded respect, but Victoria didn't notice. She was too busy straightening her blouse and typing furiously into the Home Shield neighborhood app. "Emergency at Ridgeview Park. Outsiders causing chaos. Protect our community." Notifications exploded, some cheering her on, others calling her out for racism. The faint wail of sirens carried through the summer air. Victoria's smile widened. "Hear that? Orders coming." But Danielle Parker's eyes narrowed, her voice low and unshaken. "Order will come, Miss Kane, just not the way you think." The first flicker of red and blue lights painted the edge of Sycamore Street as 2 patrol cars pulled into the park driveway. The crowd at the pavilion shifted uneasily. Children fell silent, their paper plates of cake left half-eaten. Victoria. Kane stood taller, straightening her blouse like a general awaiting reinforcements. She waved her phone toward the cruisers. "Over here, officers. Finally, someone to handle this mess." From the first car stepped Officer Riley Grant, a seasoned veteran with gray streaks at his temples. Behind him, Officer Jordan Diaz, younger, alert, scanning the scene. Their eyes moved over the pavilion, tables lined neatly with food, a string of balloons swaying in the breeze, families gathered in Sunday best. Nothing resembling the gang party Victoria had described. "Ma'am," Officer Grant began cautiously, "what seems to be the issue?" "The issue?" Victoria's voice jumped an octave. She pointed wildly toward the families. "Noise, trespassing, public intoxication. Look at them, completely out of control. I've been terrorized all afternoon. Arrest them. Shut this down." Danielle Parker stepped forward, her daughter, Amara, clinging to her side. She kept her voice calm. "Officers, my daughter's 8th birthday party is under this pavilion. We reserved it legally through the Parks Department. The permit is posted right there." Officer Diaz walked over to the taped document, scanning it carefully. His brow furrowed. "Permit number matches city records, Lieutenant. Time block, 2 p.m. to 7 p.m., Pavilion B. Signed, paid in full." Victoria's face flushed crimson. "That paper means nothing. They're lying. Don't you smell the alcohol? Hear the shouting? They're disturbing the peace." Grant raised his official sound meter. The device beeped. "Current level, 62 decibels. Well within weekend limits of 75. As for alcohol, I see soda, juice boxes, and bottled water." The guests exhaled with relief. But Victoria doubled down. "You're being deceived. These people are experts at gaming the system. Just wait until the sun sets. You'll see the real chaos." Maya's livestream counter jumped to 800 as Ian. Her camera panned between the officers, her Aunt Danielle, and Victoria's flailing arms. Comments flew across the screen. "This is embarrassing. She's literally inventing crimes. The cops look done already." Victoria, noticing, the phones pointed at her, raised her voice even higher. "Neighbors, come out and witness this. If we don't act, our property values will vanish." Right on cue, Mrs. Dalton shuffled down the sidewalk with a folder of HOA violation forms. "She's right," she said shakily. "We can't let this turn into a precedent." Behind her, Elliot. Shaw held up his noise meter app. "Actually," he announced, "readings are fine. Nothing illegal." His words cut through Dalton's support like a blade. The officers exchanged glances. Grant tapped his radio. "Dispatch, requesting supervisor, crowd forming." From across the street, Mrs. Novak muttered in disgust, recording steadily from her porch. "Que vergüenza," she whispered again. "What a shame." Victoria's grin spread as she mistook the call for backup in her favor. "Good. Bring more. The sooner we clean this up, the safer Ridgeview will be." The children's eyes darted between balloons swaying in the breeze and the flashing police lights reflecting off the pavilion roof. Fear mixed with confusion. Danielle bent low to Amara, smoothing her hair. "Don't worry, sweetheart. We did everything right." And then, faint but unmistakable, came the deeper wail of another siren, the supervisor's unit, approaching fast. The tension thickened. Phones stayed trained. Viewers multiplied. Everyone braced for the turning point. The low growl of a larger engine echoed down Sycamore Street as a black and white SUV pulled into the park. The flashing bar lights cast long streaks across the grass, making the balloons above the pavilion tremble with color. Sergeant Howard Briggs stepped out, a square-shouldered man with 20 years on the force and a face set in lines of practiced authority. His eyes swept the crowd. Families gathered nervously, children clutching their parents' arms, phones raised and recording from every angle. He could feel the weight of dozens of lenses, plus the faint hum of social media in the air. "Victoria." Kane rushed forward before anyone else could speak. "Sergeant, thank God, I'm the one who called. These people are running an illegal gathering, loud, unsanitary, threatening. It's chaos." She gestured dramatically to the tables where plates of pizza and juice boxes sat in neat rows. Briggs raised an eyebrow. He turned to Officers Grant and Diaz. "What's the situation?" Grant answered evenly. "Noise complaint. Sound levels are legal. Pavilion is under valid permit. No alcohol or disturbances observed." Diaz held up the laminated sheet for Briggs to inspect. "Everything checks out." The sergeant studied the document, then the orderly tables, then the children in party hats chasing bubbles. His expression didn't change, but his silence was answer enough. Victoria's voice cracked higher. "Are you blind? Look at them. Blocking pathways, scaring the neighborhood. We have standards. Here in Ridgeview." Maya's live stream counter ticked past 2,000 viewers. Comments flew across the screen. She just said, "Standards. Yikes. This is going viral fast. Look at the sergeant's face." From the pavilion, Danielle Parker stepped forward, her voice steady. "Sergeant, my daughter is turning 8. We booked this space months ago. All rules have been followed. Ms. Kane is harassing us." Victoria spun on Danielle, eyes blazing. "Harassing? You don't belong. Here, you and your crowd. This isn't your kind of park." A sharp gasp spread through the crowd. Even Mrs. Dalton lowered her HOA papers. Elliot Shaw shook his head in disbelief, muttering, "She really said that out loud?" Briggs's gaze hardened. "Ms. Kane," he said slowly, "everything I've seen here is legal. Your statements, however, are becoming a concern." But Victoria only doubled down, emboldened by the cameras. She raised her phone, live streaming to her Home Shield app followers. "Neighbors, are you seeing this? The police are protecting lawbreakers. Our community is under attack." Maya's stream counter rocketed past 3,500, her TikTok crosspost climbing even higher. Hashtags exploded. "Do birthday," "Party Karen," and "Actu Park Meltdown" hit the trending bar. Children peeked out from behind their parents, wide-eyed. Amara clutched her tiara like it was armor. Danielle crouched down, smoothing her daughter's dress. "Sweetheart, remember what we talked about. Sometimes people shout because they're scared, but we stand tall." Up front, Sergeant Briggs shifted his stance. The balance of the scene was tipping. Phones were everywhere. The story was no longer just a neighborhood spat. It was becoming a public showdown. Victoria Kane, breathing fast, lifted her chin, convinced the crowd would bend to her authority. She had no idea she was about to collide with a truth that would unravel her entire performance. By the time Sergeant Briggs crossed his arms in measured silence, the park was no longer just a park. It was a stage, and every phone pointed at the pavilion became a spotlight. 16-year-old Maya Ward could barely keep up with the comments flooding her stream. Her viewer count had passed 5,000. Screenshots of Victoria's red face and furious gestures were already bouncing across Twitter and TikTok. Someone clipped her shouting, "You don't belong here," and captioned it, "2024, and this is still happening." At the same time, Victoria narrated her own version on the Home Shield app, voice shrill but confident. "Illegal gathering in Ridgeview Park. Outsiders destroying our neighborhood. Police refusing to act." Her audience of 40 loyal followers threw her emojis of approval. But within minutes, those posts were screen-grabbed and dragged into Maya's livestream chat, where thousands mocked the contradictions. "Karen has 40 followers. Birthday Girl has 5,000 defenders," one comment read. Laughter emojis flooded the screen. More neighbors began emerging from their houses, phones raised. Mrs. Novak stayed rooted on her porch, zooming in from across the street. Elliot Shaw had switched from decibel readings to tweeting clips of the sergeant's calm face. Even skeptical Mrs. Dalton now avoided Victoria's gaze, quietly slipping her HOA folder under her arm. Victoria, too caught up in her performance, didn't notice. She marched in front of the pavilion like a lawyer delivering closing arguments. This is exactly how neighborhoods collapse. They move in, they take over, and pretty soon no decent families will feel safe bringing their kids to the park. Gasps rolled through the crowd. "Ma'am," Officer Diaz interrupted firmly, "I'm going to have to ask you to lower your voice. There are children present." Victoria snapped back, "Children? What about my children's future when they can't even play here because of this chaos?" Her voice cracked. Sweat darkened her blouse at the collar. The officers stayed calm, but the audience, both physical and digital, was less forgiving. On Maya's stream, comments flew, "Her mask just slipped." "This is about race, plain and simple." Screenshot everything. At that moment, the first local news van rounded the corner. Channel 5 had been tipped off by a flood of social media tags. Reporter Clara Nguyen stepped out, microphone already in hand, her cameraman hustling behind. Victoria's eyes lit with triumph. She hurried toward them, smoothing her hair. "Finally, real journalists. I'll explain everything. How our neighborhood is under siege." But Clara's first words weren't to Victoria. They were to Danielle. "Ma'am, we've been following this online. Is this your daughter's party?" Danielle, holding Amara close, nodded with weary composure. "Yes, she just turned 8. We followed every rule." Victoria shoved into frame, pointing wildly. "Don't believe her. They forged the permits. They're squatting in our park." The cameraman zoomed out, capturing the entire surreal tableau. Balloons trembling in. The wind. Children clutching paper crowns. A furious neighbor shouting about squatters at a birthday party. Meanwhile, Maya's livestream ticked past 10,000 viewers. Hashtags trending nationwide. Either Park Birthday, Ichuj Justice for Mara, and Ichuj Karen Meltdown filled timelines. Sergeant Briggs finally stepped forward, his voice carrying. "Ms. Kane, you need to calm yourself. What I see here is a lawful gathering." But Victoria only grew louder, convinced she was the star of the story. She had no idea the spotlight would soon expose everything she wanted to hide. The summer air felt heavier with every passing minute. The laughter of children was gone, replaced by whispers, the shuffle of phones, and Victoria's voice cutting through everything like a blade. "Why aren't you arresting them?" she demanded, spinning toward Sergeant Briggs. "This is dereliction of duty. Do your job." Briggs kept his expression neutral. "Ma'am, everything I see here is permitted and lawful. Your complaint doesn't match the facts." Victoria's lips curled. "Facts? I've lived here 15 years. I know what belongs and what doesn't. You officers," she swept her arm dramatically at Grant and Diaz, "are choosing sides. Protecting people who bring chaos into Ridgeview." Her words landed like poison, and the crowd murmured in disapproval. Even Mrs. Dalton, once ready with her HOA binder, stepped back, her face pale with regret. Danielle Parker adjusted her daughter's tiara and stood tall. "Sergeant, we've done nothing wrong. You can confirm everything with the Parks Department." Briggs nodded slowly. "I already have." He tapped his earpiece. "Dispatch confirmed the permit within the last 5 minutes." Victoria faltered for half a second before her rage reignited. "You're covering for them. Probably friends, or worse. This is corruption." The words echoed too loudly. Phones tilted closer, microphones from Channel 5 and now Channel 9 pushed forward. On Maya's live stream, the viewer count surged past 15,000. Comments scrolled, "She's about to dig her own grave. Wait till she finds out who Danielle really is." Screenshot every word. At the back, Major Andre Lewis, still in dress blues, stepped forward. His presence was unmistakable. Broad shoulders, medals gleaming, posture perfect. "Sergeant," he said firmly, "this harassment has gone far enough." Victoria sneered at him. "And who are you supposed to be? Some fake soldier here to intimidate me?" Andre's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, Briggs raised his hand. "Enough." His voice cut through the noise, steady as granite. "Miss Kane, I need you to lower your tone. Your remarks are on record, and they're being documented." Victoria blinked, suddenly aware of the dozens of phones and the 2 full news crews. She attempted a smile, brittle and false. "I'm only doing my duty as a citizen, protecting our standards." But the ground was already shifting beneath her feet. Sergeant Briggs turned toward Danielle. "Ma'am, do you have any additional identification with you?" Danielle reached into her purse, pulling out her driver's license. As Briggs examined it, something flickered across his face. Recognition. He looked up, his tone softening. "Parker? Any relation to Chief Raymond Parker?" The crowd froze. Danielle's voice was calm, but it carried. "Yes, he's my father." A hush swept over the park. Phones zoomed in. Viewers exploded online. Maya's chat became unreadable as emojis, exclamation points, and "what?" filled the screen. For the first time, Victoria's confidence cracked. Her hand twitched at her side. "Your father?" Briggs handed the license back respectfully. "Ma'am, you and your family are under no suspicion here. Consider this matter resolved." But the matter was anything but resolved. The story had just turned upside down. The silence after Sergeant Briggs' words was electric. Even the cicadas buzzing in the trees seemed to pause. Phones trembled in the hands of guests as everyone processed what they'd just heard. Danielle Parker, the mother Victoria had been screaming at, wasn't just another resident hosting a birthday party. She was the daughter of Chief Raymond Parker, the highest-ranking officer in the city. Victoria's smug grin faltered, the first crack of fear flashing across her face. "Chief Parker?" she repeated as if the name were poison on her tongue. Sergeant Briggs straightened his shoulders. "Yes, Chief Parker has served this community for over 25 years, and this," he gestured toward Amara in her pink tiara and paper birthday sash, "is his granddaughter." A ripple went through the crowd. Someone gasped audibly. On Maya's live stream, the viewer count rocketed past 20,000, the chat exploding. "Brew, she called cops on the chief's family. That's career-ending level humiliation. Keep filming, this is gold." Reporters leaned in, microphones catching every word. Cameramen zoomed close on Victoria's paling face. Danielle placed her hands gently on Amara's shoulders. Her voice was steady, but her eyes burned. "You tried to ruin my daughter's birthday. You scared these children, all because of what? Balloons? Music? Or because we didn't fit your idea of who belongs here?" Victoria stammered. I didn't know. If I had known..." "Known what?" Andre Lewis stepped forward, his medals glinting in the afternoon sun. "That this family has more ties to this community than you ever will? That the little girl you just called Chaos is the granddaughter of the man who built Ridgeview's safety policies from the ground up?" Phones caught every syllable. The officers shifted, their posture now openly protective of the Parkers. Officer Diaz even took a subtle step closer to Danielle, as if shielding her from further abuse. Victoria's phone buzzed in her hand. Dozens of notifications from her home shield post popped across the screen. But the tone had changed. Neighbors who once egged her on were now turning against her. "Victoria, stop. You've gone too far. Delete this before it ruins you. You just embarrassed the entire HOA." But it was too late. Chief Parker himself hadn't arrived. He didn't need to. His reputation and his daughter's calm dignity were more than enough. Sergeant Briggs cleared his throat. His voice was official, loud enough for every camera. "Ms. Kane, your 911 call described violence, drugs, and danger. None of those claims are true. Filing false reports is a criminal offense. Do you understand the seriousness of that?" Victoria's knees wobbled. I thought..." "No," Briggs cut in, his tone like a gavel. "You assumed, and you weaponized this department against your neighbors. That ends today." The crowd clapped. Not loud at first, just a few hands. Then more. Within seconds, applause swelled across the pavilion, drowning out the shrill, Buzz of Victoria's protests. For the first time that afternoon, Amara smiled. And for the first time in her life, Victoria Kane realized she had no control at all. The sound of clapping rolled across Ridgeview Park, growing louder until even the children joined in, their little hands smacking together in uneven rhythm. The applause wasn't just for Danielle and Amara, it was for the truth finally cutting through the noise. Victoria Kane's face blazed crimson. "Stop clapping! This isn't funny!" she shrieked, her voice breaking as the cameras zoomed in. Maya's live stream had crossed 30,000 viewers. Clips of Victoria yelling, "You don't belong here," were already circulating on TikTok with captions like, "She picked the wrong family." Twitter hashtags ETU Park Karen and GTU Justice EWE. For Amara trended regionally within the hour. Local reporter Clara Nguyen stepped closer with her microphone. "Ms. Kane, can you explain why you called 911 to report violence and drugs when this is clearly a child's birthday party?" Victoria's mouth opened and closed. Sweat streaked her foundation. I was concerned for public safety. These people..." Gasps cut her off. Even her former ally, Mrs. Dalton, shook her head. "Don't dig deeper, Victoria. Everyone heard what you said." Channel 9's Marcus Reed turned his camera on Danielle instead. "Mrs. Parker, how does it feel knowing your family was targeted? Like this?" Danielle brushed a hand across Amara's hair, her voice even. "This isn't about feelings, it's about facts. We followed every rule, and still, my daughter had to watch grown adults try to ruin her birthday." The applause swelled again, this time directed at Danielle. Meanwhile, Sergeant Briggs finished typing into his incident report tablet. He looked up. "Ms. Kane, your statements are all documented. You may face charges for misuse of emergency services." Phones zoomed in as Victoria's knees buckled. "Charges? Against me? I was protecting the neighborhood." Officer Diaz's tone was crisp. "No, ma'am. You were harassing it." Laughter rippled through the guests, quickly hushed by Danielle's steady hand. She wouldn't let this turn into mockery. Dignity, always. On Maya's stream, the comments were relentless. "Imagine calling cops on the chief's granddaughter. Her HOA career is done. Screenshot this whole press conference energy." And it wasn't just social media anymore. News. Apps pushed alerts to thousands of Ridgeview residents' phones. Breaking. Woman calls police on child's birthday party. Host revealed as police chief's family. Victoria fumbled with her phone, trying to delete her Home Shield posts. But the screenshots had already spread. Her words, "Outsiders destroying our park," were stamped in digital permanence. From across the street, Mrs. Novak muttered to her camera, "She wanted attention. Now she's got it." The final humiliation came not from the police, not from the cameras, but from the children themselves. 8-year-old Amara, still wearing her crooked tiara, stepped out from behind her mom. Her voice trembled but carried. "It's my birthday. Why did you want to ruin it?" The park went silent. Victoria stuttered, I didn't mean..." But the sentence collapsed under the weight of dozens of phones and the shame of every watching eye. Danielle scooped Amara into her arms, whispering, "You don't have to listen to her anymore, sweetheart." The applause rose again, and this time it felt final. Victoria Kane had lost the crowd, the cameras, and the narrative. And the internet was just getting started. By nightfall, Ridgeview Park was empty of balloons and cake crumbs, but the story was everywhere. Phones buzzed across the city as push notifications stacked up. Breaking, woman. Calls 911 on child's birthday party. Host revealed as police chief's family channel. 5 special report, Ridgeview, birthday party Karen. Sparks, outrage trending. It nationwide. Park Karen clips from Maya's live stream, now replayed by over 200,000 viewers, showed Victoria Kane shouting about outsiders and standards. Her shrill voice replayed endlessly in memes, stitched into TikToks with captions like, "When you ruin a kid's birthday, but ruin your own life instead." Neighbors who once nodded politely at Victoria now flooded her Home Shield page with comments, "Embarrassed to share a zip code with you. You don't represent us. Resign from HOA immediately." Her business, Kane Interiors, felt the blow within hours. Google reviews plummeted from 4.7 to 1.3 stars overnight. "Racist. Owner," one read. "Ruins kids' birthdays," said another. Yelp suspended reviews due to unusual activity. But screenshots kept circulating. At her own kitchen table, Victoria sat hunched, scrolling in disbelief. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Reporters, angry clients, even her sister leaving a voicemail. "What did you do? It's everywhere. Victoria." Across town, in the Parker household, the mood was quieter but no less tense. Danielle tucked Amara into bed, smoothing her curls. The little girl whispered, "Will she come back?" Danielle shook her head firmly. "No, sweetheart. She won't bother us again. You were so brave today." Amara smiled faintly. "I liked when everyone clapped for us." In the living room, Sergeant Briggs sat with Danielle's brother Andre, finalizing the incident report. The sergeant's voice carried professional weight. "Ms. Kane filed a false report. That's a misdemeanor. With the live stream evidence, it's airtight." Andre leaned back, his military cap on his knee. "Her biggest punishment won't be the law. It'll be her own reputation. She wanted attention, and she got it." Meanwhile, the local HOA scrambled. Emails circulated late into the night. "How do we distance ourselves from Kane?" "Emergency meeting first thing Monday." "This could expose us to liability." On Twitter, screenshots of those leaked HOA emails went viral too. By morning, national outlets had picked up the story. Good Morning America ran a segment titled "From Balloons to Backlash," the birthday party that sparked a movement. Clips of Amara in her pink tiara asking, "Why did you want to ruin it?" played side by side with Victoria's shrill 911 call. Public sympathy swelled for the Parker family. Danielle received hundreds of messages of support. Teachers offering to host another party for Amara. Local bakeries sending cakes. Neighbors planning a community picnic to reclaim Ridgeview Park with joy instead of fear. Victoria, however, couldn't escape. Paparazzi-style photos of her leaving her house, head ducked under sunglasses, splashed across news blogs. One headline read, "From Interior Design to Internet Infamy, The Fall of Victoria Kane." Her empire of polished reputation was collapsing, and the storm had only just begun. Monday morning, Ridgeview's City Hall overflowed with reporters. Microphones crowded the steps, cameras angled toward the podium where Police Chief Raymond Parker stood in full uniform. His presence was steady, commanding, the same man who had guided the department through 25 years of storms. Behind him, Danielle watched quietly, her daughter Amara holding her hand. The little girl's tiara had been replaced with a simple pink bow, but her story had already traveled farther than her family ever imagined. Chief Parker adjusted the mic. On Saturday afternoon, officers responded to a 911 call reporting violence, drug activity, and disorder at Ridgeview Park. What they found was an 8-year-old's birthday party, lawfully permitted, peaceful, and family-oriented. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "The individual who made that call," he continued, "filed a knowingly false report. That is a misuse of emergency services, and it wastes resources that should protect our community. More importantly, it weaponizes the police against innocent families. We will not tolerate that." Flashbulbs exploded. Reporters shouted questions, but Parker lifted a hand. "Let me be clear. Our department exists to serve all residents equally. No one, no matter their prejudice, will dictate otherwise. An investigation is underway. Charges will be pursued." At that, he stepped aside. His words were brief, but the message thundered across every headline. Police chief condemns false 911 call targeting his own family. Victoria Kane watched the press conference from her darkened living room, blinds drawn. The volume on her TV was low, but the words still cut deep. Her phone buzzed relentlessly with news alerts, client cancellations, and HOA messages she no longer had the strength to read. One particularly brutal email came from the Ridgeview HOA. President, effective immediately, your position on the board is suspended pending review. Your behavior has damaged the association's credibility. By noon, the suspension was public knowledge. Screenshots of the email appeared on Facebook groups and local Reddit threads, paired with gleeful comments. HOA Karen finally dethroned. The city's district attorney announced the next blow, a misdemeanor charge of filing a false police report. Maximum penalty, fines up to $2,500 and community service. Victoria's name appeared in official court documents within hours. The humiliation was no longer social media gossip, it was legal record. Meanwhile, Danielle tried to shield her daughter from the noise. Reporters camped outside their home, begging for interviews. Danielle declined most, but one clip circulated anyway. Her walking Amara to school, her hand firm around her daughter's. "Will she go to jail?" Amara whispered. Danielle smiled softly, though her eyes betrayed the fatigue. "That's not for us to worry about, baby. What matters is, you know you did nothing wrong. And the world knows it too." In classrooms across Ridgeview, teachers paused their lessons to talk about what happened. Kids pulled out phones, replaying Amara's brave question. "Why did you want to ruin it?" It became a teaching moment about fairness, prejudice, and courage. Victoria had wanted to protect community standards. Instead, she had become the cautionary tale. 2 weeks later, Ridgeview Park looked different. The same pavilion where chaos had erupted was now covered in banners reading "Unity in Ridgeview" and "All families welcome." Tables overflowed with potluck, dishes. Music played, not loud, just joyful, as children chased each other across the grass with balloons and face paint. The event wasn't a birthday this time. It was a community picnic, organized by residents who wanted to reclaim the park from the stain of Victoria Kane's outburst. Danielle Parker arrived with Amara, who skipped happily toward the bounce house. The little girl wore a new tiara, this one made of foam and glitter, handed out by volunteers. Unlike that Saturday, no one tried to take it from her. At the microphone, Deputy Mayor Caroline Holt addressed the crowd. "Out of a painful moment, we've built something better. Today, we announce a new ordinance. False or biased 911 calls. We'll carry enhanced penalties in Ridgeview. Weaponizing emergency services will not be tolerated in this city." The applause was thunderous. In the front row, Chief Parker nodded with quiet pride. "Accountability," he murmured to Sergeant Briggs, who stood beside him. "That's how we keep trust alive." The reforms went further. The HOA, embarrassed by the debacle, voted to create a community standards task force, but this time it included diverse residents and independent oversight. Anonymous posts were banned from the HomeShield app. Every complaint now had to carry a verified name. The change was immediate. The online vitriol that had once fueled Victoria's confidence gave way to transparency. Neighbors found themselves talking face-to-face more often, resolving disputes without digital warfare. Local businesses joined too. Riverbend Bakery delivered cupcakes to the picnic, stamped with pink frosting that read, "Happy belated birthday, Amara." Families lined up for slices, smiling for cameras. Reporters covering the event noted the shift. From outrage to ordinance, Ridgeview sets example for handling bias-driven calls. National outlets picked up the story as a model of grassroots change, and perhaps most striking of all, neighbors who had once remained silent now stepped forward. Mrs. Dalton, who had carried her HOA violation forms that fateful day, spoke publicly at the picnic. Her voice shook. "I was wrong to stand by Ms. Kane. I let fear speak louder than fairness. I'm sorry to the Parker family, and I'm committed to being better." The crowd applauded, not out of mockery, but encouragement. Danielle hugged her daughter as Amara leaned in close. "Mom," she whispered, "this is better than my party." Danielle laughed softly. "Maybe, but next year it'll just be cake and games, okay?" Amara grinned. "With balloons." "With balloons," Danielle promised. As the sun dipped low over Ridgeview, the park filled with laughter again. Not forced, not tense, but real. The woman who tried to weaponize the system had been silenced. The community she tried to divide had found a way to grow stronger, and in the center of it all, a little girl's birthday had become the spark for change. 3 months later, Ridgeview Park looked nothing like the place where Victoria Kane's voice once poisoned the air. Families gathered freely under the pavilion. Children zipped down slides, and the same bounce house Amara had loved was now a permanent fixture at city events. Victoria, meanwhile, was rarely seen. Her business contracts dried up. The HOA stripped her of all positions. Her name became shorthand in town for what not to do. A living cautionary tale. Online, the hashtag #MashaParkKaren remained a digital scar attached to her every attempt to rebrand. But the Parker family's life had changed in different ways. Danielle received letters from across the country, parents sharing similar stories. Of bias, children sending hand-drawn cards that read, "Happy Birthday, Amara," with hearts and balloons. Chief Parker used his platform to push for state-level reforms, citing his granddaughter's story as proof of why biased 911 calls had to carry consequences. Even Amara, shy at first, began to understand her impact. At school assemblies, teachers replayed the clip of her small voice asking, "Why did you want to ruin it?" The line that melted hearts had become a rallying cry for empathy over hate. On the anniversary of the incident, Ridgeview hosted Unity Day, drawing crowds larger than any before. Music, food trucks, speeches, and kids with painted faces filled the park. Danielle, holding Amara's hand, stepped up to the podium. "One woman tried to break us apart," Danielle said, voice steady. "Instead, we found strength in each other. My daughter's birthday wasn't ruined. It was transformed into something bigger, a reminder that dignity always defeats hate." The crowd erupted in cheers. Reporters once again broadcasted the event nationwide, but this time the headlines carried hope. From bias to belonging, Ridgeview turns pain into progress. And as the day closed with fireworks over the park, the message was clear. A community once shaken had rebuilt itself stronger than before. Closing message and CTA for video format. Sometimes the loudest voices of hate end up teaching us the most important lessons. A racist call to the police tried to destroy a little girl's birthday, but instead it created change that protected an entire community. What do you think? Should biased 911 calls carry harsher penalties everywhere? Tell us in the comments below. And if this story moved you, wait until you hear the next one, where a security guard thought he could throw out a homeless man from a shopping mall, until the truth about who actually owned the building left him speechless. Hit subscribe, tap the notification bell, and share this video with someone who needs to see how justice can turn the tables. Because the most powerful stories aren't fairy tales. They're real moments where quiet courage defeats loud prejudice.